Welcome to this, your daily 180 Bible study. Today, we begin a new study on the theme of the Bible. Does the Bible have a theme? You know, a lot of times we look at the Bible as if it's a story here and a story there and a story here and maybe some wise sayings, and they're all kind of disconnected, but that's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, the Bible has a great theme. It's one story. As a matter of fact, it's really better to look at the Bible rather than being 66 different books. It's one book with 66 chapters. And those 66 chapters have one story, one driving point. And that driving point is redemption. And what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at redemption through the Bible. We're going to look at some of the major themes that we find throughout the Bible. And from time to time, we'll come back to this subject and we'll deal with some more major themes that we find in the Bible. And the great theme that we find is Jesus. I mean, from beginning to end. Over in Acts chapter 8 and verse number 35, Philip is taken out into the wilderness to meet the Ethiopian eunuch. And the eunuch is reading from the book of Isaiah. And he's reading about the suffering servant. We find that passage over in Isaiah 53. And he asks a question about who's the prophet talking about? And the passage there, 8:35, says he began at that scripture and preached Jesus to him. Now, I used to look at that and think to myself, well, that was really fortunate that he was right there in Isaiah. But the reality is it didn't matter what passage he was at. Every passage points to Jesus. Every single scripture. He could have started in Genesis chapter 3. There in Genesis chapter 3, we find the great problem that mankind has, which is sin. But we also find the great promise in Genesis chapter 3 and verse 16 that the seed of woman would come and do battle to redeem mankind. Over in Galatians 4 and verse 4, there Paul would write, "But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth His Son, born of a woman." Tying back to Genesis chapter 3 and verse number 15. Isn't that interesting? The way it all connects together, and there's just one story. And that one story is about God redeeming mankind. I hope you'll join us for all these studies as we begin to look at the great theme of the Bible.